Hey everyone, Rob B here with Rob D, and in this episode we're going to give you the greatest hits of the Property Podcast in 2022. They are all must listen. Have you listened to them all?
Welcome to the Property Podcast. It may only be a few days till Christmas. Your focus may not be entirely on property, but congratulations on your dedication for listening to the Property Podcast still. And why not carry that forward? If you've got a bit of downtime over Christmas, why not catch up on any episodes of the show that you've missed and make sure that you're going into 2023 armed with all the knowledge and inspiration you need. So with that in mind, we're going to highlight a handful of episodes that we believe will be the most valuable for you to review over the coming weeks. Of course, a lot of what we talk about on the show is timely and is super relevant at the time it goes out, but there's not much point going back to that now. These episodes are the ones that you can make use of right now to set yourself up perfectly for next year.
And even if you are a hardcore Property Podcast listener and you've never missed an episode this year, these episodes are well worth listening to again to make sure you've absorbed all the lessons. I often find that when I go back to a book or a podcast and listen again, if I particularly enjoyed it the first time around, I pick out so much more the second time. So even if you have listened to some of these episodes already, give them another listen over the festive period because they will serve you well. And first on our list was episode 466, which was how to use Rightmove the right way. And Rightmove is one of the most important tools that you have at your disposal as a property investor, whether it's doing research or finding your next deal. And in this episode, we give you all our tips and tricks on how we use Rightmove at sort of pro level. There is so much to Rightmove. You could just use it at surface level and that's fine. But if you dig in, you can get some great value from that website. So that was episode 466. Make sure you check that out.
Next up, episode 471, entitled What Will Happen Next with Inflation? Meet the economist who's predicted it perfectly so far. And this is where, as the title suggests, I did interview one of the very, very few economists who said that we would be going into a period of very high inflation as a result of everything that happened over the COVID period. Even though this episode came out earlier in the year, and of course the situation has moved on since then, the principles that he talks about are timeless, and these are things that you can keep on making use of and use to make sense of what's going on in the world. The ideas that he talks about have changed the way that I think about inflation, which is changing the planning that I'm doing going into the next couple of years. This episode particularly rewards a re-listen because it's complex stuff. It's not a simple topic anyway. It's coming at it from an angle with ideas that you've probably never heard before. So I had people contact me at the time who said that they'd listened to it 2 or 3 times and got more out of it each time. So I'd say episode 471 is a perfect one to revisit.
Episode 469 is an absolute cracker. It's Property Sources Secrets Revealed. And in this episode, we have 2 of our team who are responsible for sourcing deals for Property Hub Invest. And to give you an idea of the scale they operate, they source over £100 million worth of property every single year for Property Hub Invest, and actually turn down many £100 million more of properties. And when you're operating at that scale, you truly are an expert. And in that episode, they reveal on how they find the deals, and just as important, if not more important, how they assess those deals and the due diligence that they go through to make sure that actually, is that those shiny numbers at the top, do they stack up? Are they real? Because sometimes a deal can be too good to be true. So they give you that process they go through to make sure that the deal is right. And that's all coming from their extensive experience. And of course, they'll give you negotiation tips and tips for newbie investors as well. There's so much in that episode. So make sure you check out episode 469, Property Sources Secrets Revealed.
If there's one topic that is reliably the most popular whenever we cover it and where we keep on getting requests for more of it, it's the 18-year property cycle. And in episode 475, we put out an episode called the 18-year property cycle, When Will the Market Crash? The episode sets out to answer the number one question that we get. We've lost count of many times we get asked, which is, where are we in the cycle? And in this episode, we say where we believe we are in the cycle, what we believe is going to happen, when the crash is going to be, and importantly, how we plan to invest between now and then. And again, even though this episode didn't come out in the last couple of weeks, doesn't matter. Nothing's changed. The point of having this kind of framework is you don't have to update your views every week based on the last thing that you read. So if you're not familiar with the 18-year property cycle, then you really must go and listen to this. But even if you are, and you want to know, how does it apply to where we are now? Is the cycle being affected by everything that's going on? Is it broken? Do we need to throw it out completely? Episode 475 is the place to go.
Next up, we have a double recommendation because it was a double episode 478 and 479. We were joined by Mary Osmond, a prolific property investor, and the knowledge that she dropped on us meant that we had to do 2 episodes. That wasn't planned. There was just so much there. She gave us her story, which is really interesting, but most importantly, she gave loads of actionable advice, including her exact framework she uses to successfully research all her properties. The value from those episodes is astonishing, so make sure you go and check out episode 478 and 479.
We've already recommended one episode on inflation, but I think it's fair to have another because it is the hot topic of the year. So in episode 482, we had an episode called Inflation, Understand It and Win Big. That's right, inflation can be a good thing. It sounds crazy considering you just keep on hearing about what a huge problem inflation is. And yeah, it is, but there are opportunities there as well if you are an investor. So in this episode, we help you kind of really dig deep into the causes of inflation, which is something that many people think they understand but actually don't, and then talk about how you can harness it to your advantage. Inflation is not going to stop being a hot topic over the next year, so now is the perfect time to make sure you can understand it and win big.
Our next recommendation is episode 505, and producer Dan joined Rob and I to talk about a real-life deal. So first of all, we spoke to Dan about the process of assessing a deal and what was on his mind, and really got into the nitty-gritty of the decision-making that you take to decide on your next investment property. And what made that episode really interesting for me is that would be super valuable on its own. But this was happening during probably the scariest time of the year, when sentiment was at an all-time low and people were just panicking. Yet Dan went ahead with that deal. So we talked to him about why he went ahead and what, if anything, changed for him going through that process in such a turbulent market. To be able to document that process at such a tricky time in the market is really, really valuable. And I'm so glad we did that episode. So make sure you're going to listen to episode 505, which is called We Assess a Real Life Deal. Is it a yes or no in this market?
And finally, our last recommendation to go and catch up on was episode 503, called Don't Let a Crisis Go to Waste, What You Should Be Doing Right Now. And this episode captures something that we strongly believe in, which is that there's always opportunities in any market. And often it's when people are the most negative that there are the most opportunities out there. So in this episode, we talk about defensive things that you can do if you're concerned about the market now and where it's going to be in the future. We also talk about attacking moves as well, including something that we haven't really heard anyone talking about anywhere else when it comes to how to find deals in today's market. So if you are either trying to get the confidence to make some moves next year or are strongly planning on making some moves next year, I want to get the best deal possible, that is a must listen.
So there you go. A bit of a Christmas gift. More podcasts for you to listen to. Thank you for being with us this year. We have one more episode before the year is out. It's our reflection episode. We do this every year. And after this year, I think it's going to be an interesting episode because it's been quite a year, right? And because it's been quite a year, rest up, enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your Christmas or your holidays or this period of rest. Take it in because we'll come back stronger next year, all of us. But until then, have a wonderful Christmas, happy holidays, and we'll be back next week with the final pod of the year. Until then, take care, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.